Some years ago, a producer Mike got me this notebook on clearance. I think it was $3. I played in it for about 30 pages and eventually shelved it, purposeless. Now that I want to keep a reading journal, it made sense to experiment with this forgotten bargain, especially since there are only a few months left in this year, and I hope to acquire a new notebook to use as my reading journal for 2026. Hi, I'm Irene. This is Inkworks, and I'm stoked for this project. There are a handful of spreads done already, and I'm going to share those with you. This channel is mostly about watercolors, gouache, and fountain pen inks, which is why I didn't record the collage/journaling process. Well, that and the fact I was still figuring out how to go about it, and all of my old collage content had sunk quicker than I could say, "Hi, I'm Irene." I started with a cover page, something pretty to serve as separation from the previous section. The dimensions here are approximately 5 by 7 inches. That equates to the B6 notebook size. For my next reading journal, I'm going to aim for an A5, which is 6 by 8 inches, because this B6 notebook feels restrictive. There's simply not enough space for all of my complaints, such as "this story stinks on ice," or "not third-person present tense again," or even "why does there have to be so many words?" So I had to pare down the commentary to the essentials, like "I enjoyed it" or "I did not enjoy it." Boring. The first practical spread is my want to read list, sometimes referred to as a TBR, or to be read list. I figured 2 pages would surely be enough, but I figured wrongly. An insert was added using clear tape. That allows me to update the list with more books, and I've been highlighting the titles as I complete them. As of now, I've finished 8 books. Not bad for 4 weeks of reading. Quite surprising, actually, since I'd anticipated only 1 book per week, as you can see on the reading goal spread. That's right, I had to add another insert, this time to accommodate unexpected productivity. There are 2 books marked for last month, not because I was a sluggard, rather because I started this journal in mid-September. So far, there are 6 for October, but very likely a 7th before the month is done. Foregoing a monthly spread, I dove straight into reviews. Nestlings by Nat Cassidy is a contemporary horror novel from 2023. It's been described as Rosemary's Baby meets Salem's Lot. While there are similarities, Nestlings is its own thing. I liked it and rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Some of the scary parts worked well, but a couple of them left me unaffected. That said, my favorite section was when one of the main characters has an unpleasant confrontation with his boss. That was so intense and well written that it stands out as a highlight. Maybe I just really related to the situation. I mean, who hasn't nearly had a fit while suppressing work rage? I even learned a couple of new words. Inchoate, meaning not fully formed, and interstitial, meaning being an intervening space. My next read was a mystery called Books Can Be Deceiving by Jenn McKinlay. It was published in 2011. I chose it because it's set in a small New England coastal town, and the main character works at the public library. Can you get any cozier? I waffled over 2.5 and 3 stars. It didn't wow me, but it was pleasant enough to stay on my series to keep an eye on list. I'm a big list maker, but series to keep an eye on is merely a mental one, not a physical one. At least not yet. Maybe I should add a series tracker list as a future spread. By the way, I think there was supposed to be hints at a future romantic pairing, but I can't say for sure because that element felt as tepid as 3-day-old tea. The Woman in Black by Susan Hill was technically a reread, but since I last read it over 20 years ago, I barely remembered anything about it. I've enjoyed the film adaptations many times over, though, and wanted to remind myself of the differences. Although published in 1983, it really feels like a classic ghost story from the early 1900s. Lots of slow, creeping dread, and what I consider a satisfying end. 4 out of 5 stars, but on another day, I might bump it up to 4.5. I forgot to make space for the book cover while planning the layout. Thus, it's awkwardly hanging there on the edge. I'd been wanting to read Stephen King's Dr. Sleep ever since watching the film adaptation 5 or 6 years ago. There are some differences, and I really like what director Mike Flanagan did with the material. So I gave this book 3.5 stars. I think one aspect wasn't emphasized enough in the movie, and that's how much Dan's experience with Deanie and her child haunts him. It was a major motivation for him throughout the story. Of course, I have my own guilty secret. Not that it's driven me to drink or anything, but I am humbled by the fact that I never finished reading The Shining. Is it time? Shall I add it to the WTR list? I feel FOMO as much as the next person. So when I kept hearing the name T. Kingfisher bandied about BookTube, I decided to try her novel, What Moves the Dead. Or perhaps at 165 pages, it's more of a novella. Published in 2022, it's a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. Not sure if I ever read that one, but I had a basic idea of it. Kingfisher adds color to that story. Sure, it's a drab and dreary color, but it's still color. There are fleshed-out characters and some abnormal hairs and fungi. I liked the writing style, the main character's intriguing background, and the gothic atmosphere. 4 out of 5 stars. After several books from the horror genre, I wanted to lighten things up, and Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice to Murderers was exactly what I needed. The author is Jessie Q. Sutanto. This was my first time reading her work, and it won't be my last. If I had to describe this book with one word, it would be delightful. Vera Wong is a 60-year-old Chinese tea shop owner in San Francisco, and when she finds a dead body on her floor, she decides she can do a better job of solving the case than the do-nothing police force. There were 5 or 6 quotes I wanted to include, but there just wasn't enough space. The book was funny, but also surprisingly heartfelt. I almost gave it 5 stars, but ultimately settled on 4.5. There is a sequel which I've yet to read. Hopefully, this will become a long-running series. K.F. Breene is a new-to-me author, and her magical midlife madness sounded like a hoot. Unfortunately, I was sort of disappointed, so it only got 2.5 stars from me. It's a paranormal romance with some interesting, quirky characters. It was fun to read, but I think my main issue was that I didn't like the main character. She came across as self-absorbed and obsessed with age. Apparently, this book is the first in a series. At the moment, I don't intend to continue, but that could change. I mean, the whole small town full of magical misfits and a huge Victorian mansion as your home, those things are very appealing. I just wish it didn't come with the trite, she's the one angle. Also, the main character sure likes to guzzle wine. Seems like a red flag to me. Her romantic interest should take note. Just saying. I've now finished Catriona Ward's The Last House on Needless Street. 5 out of 5 stars. More of this, please. It took me a while to get into, but once I got through the first third, I marathoned the rest. The multiple POVs were really well done. So good. Although it's categorized as horror, I'd say the horror element is only 20% of the whole, with mystery and thriller each being 40%. It felt wonderfully strange without pretension, and boy, it made me cry. It's funny, there was a lot of positive buzz around this book, but I tried to maintain moderate expectations. Maybe that's why I was so impressed. Apparently, Ward has another novel called Sundial that some people say is better than The Last House on Needless Street. Intriguing. There's still a week left in October, plus all of November and December, and I'll still have pages left for stuff like reading trackers and stat spreads. I've also seen other journalers include things like book bingo, monthly favorites, and DNF, or did not finish, lists. There are several books I DNF'd, so I could add a spread for that. On every page, except for the last couple, I used an inexpensive glue stick. I don't recall where I got it from. Might have been Dollar Tree or Walmart or Daiso. I just don't remember. But I do know I'm not a fan. So now I'm using an adhesive roller from the brand AdTech. That's what I used on the last pages, and it's working fine so far. Much better than the glue stick. Glue sticks make the paper stiff and crinkly, and sometimes the adhesion releases, and I have to reapply more glue. I have none of those issues with the rollers. By the way, those little book cover images were printed out in black and white through my home printer on regular printer paper. The decorative papers and stickers are from my modest assortment of ephemera accumulated over time from several online shops. For the writing portions, I used both fine liners and fountain pens. I'm happy to share this journal flip-through with you. Thanks so much for watching and supporting this channel. If you're wondering, support the what now? Just click on the thumbs up thingy. It's so easy and free. The next video will very likely feature fountain pen ink. The one after that should be the final installment of the Magello Watercolor Journal series. Unless something goes horrendously wrong, in which case you'll never hear about it again. Until next time, remember, the difference between to be read and want to read is subtle yet salient. And stay artsy, my friends.